Hi, it's Future from Sewmate. Welcome to my channel. If you want to see how I make these beautiful paperback short pants, please stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do, and make sure to turn on your notification bell so that each time I upload new videos you get notified. You will need your pants block pattern to do this. I've got a tutorial on this channel on how you can make one. I'll leave a link in the description below and a link above as well. So first, starting with the back pants, trace around your block as usual, making sure to mark all your notches and the dart. We're just tracing up to the knee level. Lift the block, draw in your dart, square in your hip line and your knee line. Now measure your shirt to where you want it to be. I prefer to take off 5 centimeters from the knee line. Square a line down your hip line. Now measure from the squared line to the original pants line. Get that measurement and put it to the other side, which is the inseam. Square 4 centimeters up at that point. And we're going to go ahead and put a hem allowance of 4 centimeters as well. Next, square lines up from the hip line like I'm doing here. Make sure they're both squared. Outlining my notch for the seam allowance there and just squaring with the line that we squared from the hip line, that same point. Now joining this new point to the seam line point at the side seam with a straight line. And we're going to cancel out our dart. It's not going to be used in this pattern. Adding my seam allowance for the waist 1 centimeter. Now I'm outlining my notches for the seam allowance at the waistline there. So measure between these 2 points and write the measurement down. Then at the crotch point we're going to go out 1 centimeter and down 1 centimeter to increase ease there. Marking the point and squaring a little line in. Getting a curved ruler and just joining these 2 points with a nice curve. And joining the line to the original curve line like I'm doing here with your curved ruler. So this part is no longer included in our pattern, and just smoothing things out at this point as well. Adding notches to the pattern. Adding my grain line squaring using the hip line there. Now labeling the pattern, back pants, cut 1 pair and I put my initial. Cut around your pattern. And our back pants are finished. Now moving on to the front. Trace around your block as usual, making sure to mark all your darts and the notches up to the knee level. Lift your block, draw in your dart, square in your hip line and your knee line. And I'm taking off 5 centimeters from the knee line like I did with my back. You can choose to shorten it however you want. Now square a line down the hip line. Measure this amount and transfer it to the inseam like we did with the back as well. Square up 4 centimeters. And putting in my hem allowance 4 centimeters again. Moving the crotch point 1 centimeter out and 1 centimeter down like we did with the back. Now square a little line in from this point with your curved ruler. draw a nice curve. Join a nice curve as well from this squared line to the original crotch line, and this part is no longer included in our pattern. Squaring a line up to the waist from the hip line on both sides. Make sure they're all squared. Now outlining my notch for the waistline seam there, transferring it across to the squared line, and joining these 2 points with a straight line, and adding our joining seam allowance for the waist 1 centimeter. Now I'm just outlining my notches for the seams, measuring between these 2 notches and writing the measurement down. Next, we'll start plotting our pocket, so just outlining my seam allowance at the side seam there, 1.5 centimeters for me. From the seam line, measure 6 to 10 centimeters in, put a mark. Now from this point, we're going to measure a further 5 centimeters and put another mark. Measure down 13 centimeters from the waistline seam and put a mark. You can make it 13 to 15 centimeters actually for the pocket opening. From the hip line, go down 5 centimeters, put a mark. Now square a line across from this new point, and we're going to square another line down from the 5 centimeter mark there. Join these 2 points, square a little line out on both ends, and connect a nice curve like I'm doing here. You can also draw a straight line between those 2 points, it depends with what you want. Now adding seam allowance is right round 1 centimeter for me. And smoothing everything out nicely with a curved ruler. Get a fresh pattern paper and we're going to go ahead and trace out our pocket pattern. Just follow through the outer lines and the curved line. Separate your patterns. Now cut around your pattern following through the tracing wheel marks that we left there. And labeling the pattern, pocket, cut 1 pair and I put my initial. Adding my grain line. And our pocket pattern is finished. Now bring back your main pattern, adding notches to the pattern. And labeling the pattern, front pant, cut 1 pair and I put my initial. Adding my grain line, squaring up from the hip line. Cut around your pattern. So the dart is not included in this pattern. And our front pant pattern is finished. Now moving on to making the waistband. So get your front and back pants waistline measurements that we put there. Add them together and draw a straight line with that measurement. Square lines up both ends like I'm doing here. Now measure your elastic width and add 3 millimeters to that amount. Plot that amount down like I'm doing here. Then the second section will be for the top frill for the paperbag effect. I'm going to be using 5 centimeters. Extending my lines on both ends. Now take this measurement that we have here, we're going to add it to the top of the line on both ends like I'm doing here. Square line across. Add the same measurement on the other side and join these 2 points together. So this side is going to be on fold, and adding our seam allowance is right round 1 centimeter for me, except for the folded part. Adding notches to the pattern and labeling the pattern. Waistband, cut 1 on fold, and I put my initial. Adding the grain line in the center and cutting around the pattern. So our waistband piece is finished. Now we're moving on to making our waist tie. Draw a straight line. I'm using 75 centimeters, so you can go up to 85 or whatever length you prefer. Square line up both ends. So my waist tie is going to be 5 centimeters wide, so measuring 5 times 2, which is 10 centimeters up on both ends and joining with a straight line. Putting one side on fold, going to the middle and put a mark. Draw a straight line, 5 centimeters, and join nicely like I'm doing to the corners. Adding a seam allowance right round 1 centimeter. Adding my grain line in the center. And labeling the pattern, waist tie or belt. Cut 1 on fold, plus 1 fusing on fold 2. Or you can have a second option if your fabric is not wide enough, you can cut 1 pair. But remember to add a seam allowance at the back here where we put the fold line for the first option, and I add my initial. Now cut around your pattern. And the waist tie pattern is finished. Now we're moving on to making belt loops. So I want my belt loops to be 5 centimeters wide in the end, so just multiply that by 4 and I get 20 centimeters. So draw a line. So we're basically drawing a rectangle of 20 centimeters by 6 centimeters wide. Why 6 centimeters? Because our belt is 5 centimeters wide, so we add 1 centimeter ease to it to make it 6 centimeters. So 20 by 6 centimeters. 20 centimeters and 6 centimeters. So like I said, 20 centimeters is for the belt loop width multiplied by 4. And the 6 centimeters is for the waist tie width plus 1 centimeter ease. So that's 5 centimeters plus 1 centimeter ease to give us 6 centimeters. Now adding seam allowances at the top and bottom only. And labeling the pattern piece, belt loop, cut 5. Depends with what you want, you can add more or less, doesn't matter. Cut around your pattern. Adding a grain line in the center. And our belt loop pattern is finished. Now all our pattern pieces are finished, and now moving on to sewing. Now on to making our short pants. What you need are your completed patterns, your fabric, your elastic, and your cutting tools. So for the fabric, I'm using this beautiful poplin fabric. So now let's move on to cutting our fabrics. So all our pattern pieces are cut and ready to sew, and as usual we're going to be doing many steps as we go along so that we finish this project quickly. So the first thing you're gonna do is to go ahead and interface your waistband piece. Okay, so we're going to go ahead as well and just fold it backwards on itself like this, and we're going to pin along from one end to the other. Now we'll take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew from the forward line all the way to the corner, pivot our fabric, and just sew the way along this part. Here, come to the corner, pivot again, and finish off at the forward line. So I'm gonna put this on the side for now. Then we're going to go ahead, grab our pocket pieces. So I've already prepared mine for sewing. I went ahead and ironed my seam allowances under. So I'll take this to the overlocker and overlock along this whole edge here, and overlock this bottom edge as well. Okay, overlock the other one on this whole edge and the bottom part. And we'll take this to the sewing machine and finish off the opening of our pocket. I'm just going to do a double turned hem of 5 millimeters. Okay, all the way to the corner there for both. We'll put this on the side as well. Then grab your waistband piece, fold it back on itself like this, right sides facing, matching the open edge, and we're going to go ahead and pin along it. Take it to the sewing machine and sew along this open edge here, back taking at the beginning and the end. I'm putting this on the side as well. Then go ahead and grab your belt loops. I've prepared mine already. I've got 5 of them. So first we ironed it in half lengthwise like this. Open it and then bring both edges to the center like this. And then finally we bring the folded edges together like this. So we'll take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to give it an edge stitching on both ends lengthwise, and then we're going to go ahead and overlock one edge. Next, grab your front pants pieces, align them at the crotch seam here, and you're going to take this to the sewing machine and just sew along the crotch seam all the way to here. Okay, when you finish that, you're going to go ahead and overlock this seam as well. Putting this on the side. Then grab your back pants. We're going to take them to the sewing machine as well. Align them at the crotch seam like we did with the front, and we're going to go ahead and sew along the crotch seam all the way to there. Okay, and after that we're going to overlock this whole seam. Let's go and do all that now. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and trim the corners. And then we're going to turn the waistband to the right side using the hole that we left in there. Okay. So we're gonna take this to the iron and iron this nice and flat. Then when we finish, we're going to go to the sewing machine and just finish off the part that we left open with an edge stitching. Okay, so I'm gonna put this on the side. Then with the waistband piece, I went ahead to the iron and ironed the seam open. So what we're going to do now is to fold it on itself halfway, wrong sides facing, like this. Right round. You can pin along if you want, not at the edge though. Now we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and sew right round from the fold line for our frill allowance. My frill is going to be 5 centimeters wide, so I'm just gonna go ahead and give my first stitching at 5 centimeters right round from the fold line. Okay, then I'm gonna put this on the side. Then get your elastic, which is your exact waist measurement, overlap it 1 centimeter, pin it along. Take it to the sewing machine as well and attach it here with a zigzag stitch. Next, get your front pins and we're going to lay them on the table with the right side facing up. Then grab your 2 pocket pieces and align them to the side seams. Pin them down. So we take this to the sewing machine and give them an edge stitching from the top here all the way down, pivot our fabric and finish off here at the side seam. Do that with this one as well. Okay, let's go and do all that. Next, grab your waistband piece and also grab your elastic, and we're going to go ahead and open these 2 bottom layers, and we're going to put our elastic in between these layers and just go right round, pinning along. So we take this to the sewing machine and just sew right round with a 1 centimeter seam allowance at the edges here. So I'm putting this on the side now. So grab your front and back pen pieces, lay them on the table, right sides facing. Pin along the side seams. Now also go ahead and pin along the crotch seam, making sure that you're sending the seam allowances opposite sides at the crotch area here to avoid bulk. So we'll take this to the sewing machine, sew along the inseam from one end to the other and overlock it, and do the same with the side seams. Sew along the side seams and overlock them. Let's go and do that. Okay, so that's done, and now I'm gonna get my pen and turn it to the right side. Then get my belt loops and get the end that's not overlocked and just align 2 to the front. Pin them down. Turn the pen over. Then I'm going to put 3 to the back. So one at center back and one on each side. Then get your waistband and we're going to go along and pin it along the waistline, just making sure that your seam is against the center back seam. And pin it along the whole way. Stretching it as you go. So take this to the sewing machine and sew right around the waist seam and then overlock it. Okay, let's do that. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and finish off our belt loops. So just grab one end, fold it under 1 centimeter, and we're going to bring it up to the top, anywhere next to the seam line there, and we're just going to go ahead and pin them down. Repeat same on all of them. Now we'll take them to the sewing machine and just give them an edge stitching at the top here, all of them. When we finish that, we're going to go ahead and just hem our short. So what we're going to do is to overlock right round, fold it under, and just do a top stitching at 4 centimeters right round. Let's go and do that. Okay, now, so my short pants are finished and I'm happy with the result. Thank you.